Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Okay, there is an advantage of coming towards the end, and there is also a disadvantage of coming at the last moment. One is you are hard pressed on time. Another one is you have all the time. Okay. I think I will take the second part. I'm just joking. But today what I'm going to present to you today, if I look at the agenda, is developing successful teams. That's what it says. But what I'm going to focus, I just designed, maybe Toastmaster Mustafa, can I ask you to be seated? Because you are hiding this section of audience members from me. Whatever little audience members, they are very precious. See, what I have done, I'm not going to go through the standard Toastmasters International's team development exercise. Rather, I'm going to focus on the softer aspects of teamwork, how to make your teams work, and on the leadership side, which is just leadership. It's all going to do with leadership. So we are going to be having probably not a serious workshop, but a structured discussion. Okay, and I am going to start with a very light note. Okay? So that's why I've titled this as a teamwork. What makes our teamwork? I'm trying to bring all the principles of little leadership I have learned from the school of Robin Sharma and others, and I'm bringing it into this. Okay. Okay. I think there is a mini workshop going on that side. Okay, maybe we have to request them to stop the workshop. Yes.
Silence, please. Silence, please.
Mr. Master of Ceremony, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Now we are going to start with a little bit of a lighter note, okay, but a very important note. Okay. I am going to share 3 video clips. Probably some of you must have seen it on WhatsApps floating around. I am going to share these 3 video clips.
Interesting.
Very light note, very short one, but very important one. So we are going to discuss about that after that. There is a common theme in these 3 video clips. Is very simple, nothing high level leadership stuff. It is pedestrian crossing, road crossing. Okay, we are going to see 3 sets of road crossing. Let's watch it together. There's one pedestrian crossing the road. Just observe. You know what is he waiting for?
Signal.
시간 왜 이렇게 길어? 안 바뀌어. 그러니까 바뀔 시간인데? 대박! 가잖아! 진짜?
Wonderful, isn't it? We love some more beautiful friends doing the pedestrian crossing now this time. I don't know which is the country. Sing.
It's not India for sure.
Okay, now the third clip. Okay, very good. Now we watched a cat, and the second one a set of beautiful black ducks. Now we are going to see a person. Okay? I know. Again, I will not name the country where it is. We watch it. Yes. Wow.
Yes,
She's there. She's there.
She's still going.
Still going. The guy who's hurt is basically looking for her, shouting at her.
Incredible. This is India.
Incredible. Okay. Now the question is, this is the discussion. I think we watched this lighter moment. Okay, all the 3 clips. I mean, definitely, there's a big difference between the first 2 clips and the third clip. And if you have to discuss about the difference, Okay, again, from a teamwork context. Okay, how about a team's work context? Okay. Well, what comes to your mind from the first two clips?
Discipline.
Discipline,
and patience.
discipline, patience,
Follow your rules.
following the rules,
Observe.
observant. So I have listed. I think that we can talk a lot about beautiful, admirable orderliness, discipline. Okay, a great sense of social behavior. Okay, the respect for the social freedom, social liberty. Okay, the concern for others, concern for the rules, safety concern. Okay, when it is the other side, they are responsible, right? Height of selfishness. I don't care.
Brave.
I'm mindful. Yeah, brave, selfish bravery. Okay. Bravery, your bravery should not offend somebody else. Okay. She was crossing the road.
Foolishness.
She was crossing the road and she was somehow safe. Foolish bravery, she was safe. But the person who was driving the vehicle and the person who was going on the bike on the other side, they were hurt. Unmindful. Absolute lack of social care for a fellow human being and for the society in general, and causing catastrophes and accidents. Now, I want to ask you, but we have observed, I'm sure all of you must have had a lot of observations on that. The point is, what is the lesson to be learned out of this from a team work context? What is, if we have to, I'm going to ask you a question now. If you have to give one causal factor, one reason that is responsible for the beautiful behaviors of those ducks and cat and this irresponsible behavior of this human being, what would you associate? One factor. Did I ask an algebra question?
Awareness.
Awareness, yes, definitely. Awareness is required. But what brings that awareness?
Attitude.
From attitude, yes. What can bring the right attitude? Yeah, good. They're all right responses.
The proper
Sorry?
Culture.
The proper guidance.
Culture is a very nice word also. I want to pass. That is why you said-
Education. Education.
Education, yes, education. Okay,
Guidance.
what? Guidance. But yes, any more responses quickly? Anything else? Okay. If you really see, definitely, I want to come to this culture aspect later. But if there is, what is the one singular factor, one large macro factor,
Overconfidence.
which will drive? No, I'm talking about what? I'm talking about overconfidence is only with respect to the lady or me. Total irresponsible behavior. I'm talking about all these sets of behavior with living things which don't have the fifth sense. Here you have a human being with a fifth sense, and then doing what she is doing. What is the factor? What is the common factor that has been responsible for all these sets of behavioral skills and all these sets of behaviors?
Implementation of observed rules.
Implementation. Who is responsible for implementation and
Self.
guide? Who is behind the society? What is behind the society?
Humans.
What is if you have to
family development,
Okay.
your culture, yes.
Okay, culture is one. Definitely, culture is very important. But what drives the right culture? That is what we have to focus as leaders.
System.
Okay. What drives the right systems? Beautiful. What drives the right systems? Okay, as leaders, as
Ethics.
teamwork.
Ethics.
What drives the right ethics? Okay. What drives the right behavior? What drives
Human being at the core.
what drives for you to bring out the best humanity out of you always?
What is there in the
If you really see that, I think it is this. It's leadership. Right? Leadership. Leadership is not, again, we are always used, generally as human beings, we try to associate leadership in a singularity sense. Okay, leadership is everywhere. Leadership is pervasive. It is not just, here, if in this room, you are going to have so many leaders who are going to be responsible for the dysfunctioning of District 79 with setting the right norms, setting the right behavioral standards, setting the right social standards, setting the right camaraderie standards, setting the right concern standards between each other, right support standards, goal setting standards. I think it is the leadership. Leadership, if you really look at leadership, sets the norms for good behavioral skills. And good behavioral skills, individual behavioral skills, Good individual behavioral skills will set the norm for good team behavioral skills. And good team behavioral skills will set the norms for the system, the overall system, and overall society, country, and so on and so forth. But everything, if you really see, in the one on the left side, the question mark on the left side, all those animals, what they did when they were crossing the road, whether it's the cat or the dogs, they were leading themselves rightly. Do you agree?
Yes. But not the culture force them to do like that.
Yeah, but what will force what? Okay, for example, let's go into the culture because
Here in Saudi Arabia, same guy is driving 160 kilometer per hour, and same guy when going to the UAE, he cannot.
I agree with you. I completely not UAE. I'm talking about, let's say the guy. Let's say you are driving in Saudi Arabia. I don't want to put you in the wrong seat. That I am driving in Saudi Arabia and I am driving in India. Okay, my driving is going to be a little different. Okay, because of the system demands. Okay, yes, are different. Okay, and that is I agree with this. That is culture. All these things, all the individual behavior, team behavior, system behavior, society behavior, country level behavior. Okay, even geopolitical behavior are all effects of culture. Culture. But what drives the culture? What puts the right culture in its place? Your answer is here already, if you really see. It's culture. That's what I'm saying, culture. But what sets the right culture for the right context and the right environment is the leadership. As leaders, we are expected to drive the right culture appropriate to the society that we are managing or we live in or we are working in, the teams that we are operating in. If you are going to be, there are people sitting in petrochemical, a lot of people from the petrochemical and manufacturing industry sitting here. What is the culture that is followed there? Safety, sustainability, environment. That comes first. Rest all comes after that. If there anyone working for hospitals or hotels sitting here? We are sitting in a hotel. What's the culture that drives? Hospitality, care, guest care, hospitality. What is the culture that is probably going to be relevant for, let's talk about a different industry. Let's say in journalism. Ethics, truth, freedom. Freedom of speech.
Facts.
Okay, presentation, being honest. Okay, so but it is the leadership that is totally driving that respective system that is going to put in the right culture. Because you can never, can anyone of us see the culture? I'm going to ask you the question because some of you are sleeping. We can never see a culture because we can only feel the culture. That's why they say culture is like a wind. You can only see the effects of a culture. You cannot see the culture. And it is the leadership that is there, that is prevalent all over. The leadership that sets the norms for a particular society drives the culture. I think as leaders, I think when we are all going to be managing our teams, right? We're all going to be managing our teams. So, and we are going to be forming our teams. And we have to make sure we put the right culture and right leadership behavior in place. I mean, when I say put is a strong word. Okay, it's a little bit of a dominating word. We have to motivate, and we have to facilitate, we have to guide, and we have to make people cultivate the right leadership skills and right cultural skills, right set of behavioral skills in place. It is the leadership. Okay, and very quickly I'm going to talk to you about, because we are talking about teams. What are the different stages of teams? Has anyone read about it? I think I'm sure we work for different companies. There are different stages of teams. There is one, Bruce Tucker, his guideline is form. Have you heard about it? Forming?
Yes.
Forming? And then? Storming, you're right. Norming and performing. And finally there is a journey, that is after your job is done. I think as leaders, we have to make sure we have to let our teams go through these stages: forming, storming, norming, and performing. Today, you have been nominated as leaders, or you have been elected as leaders. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of teams working on every area director, every division director, every president of the clubs. And we have to let them go through these stages. What is forming? Forming is selection and formation of the team. What is storming?
WhatsApp group,
That's the modern day technology. That's the easiest thing to do these
something
days.
like this.
Okay. But how do you? I mean, what is storming? You know.
Because knowing each other and to.
Let's go through this. Okay. Forming is just introduction. Okay. Now we are all getting introduced in the workshops, at district meetings, acquaintance, and people are very positive. People are more focused on getting to know each other, introducing themselves very nicely, even though they may not be very nice. Okay. But I'm just joking. Otherwise, everybody is very serious. Okay. And what happens in the storming stage? You know, the storming stage, we bring ideas. We bring proposals. Let's say we want to conduct a division conference. Okay, I think how many of you here have been part of a division conference managing committee or organizing committee? Almost all of you are there. Have you seen those meetings full of storming, right? Have you seen SATA committees?
Yes.
Only storming, nothing else. Most of the times, right? Where the boundaries are pushed, your ideas are challenged, and there are people come from. I think somebody was talking about club culture, Madhusha's workshop, right? Club culture. We're finding it difficult to make one club mingle with other club because its club culture is different. So people come from different backgrounds, not necessarily nationality or religion, but from different clubs, different ways of doing things. They come together and they challenge each other. The ideas or proposals are either totally accepted or totally rejected or thrown out. It gets into conflicts, personal conflicts. So this is a very, very important stage of team formation, storming. And here is where you are expected to use your great leadership skills to make this team move from the storming stage to norming stage, where you agree about everything, all the ideas. Okay, you'll have to agree on a common action plan. You'll have to agree on the way forwards. Okay, and then the teams start performing. Okay? Once you achieve your goals, you adjourn. Okay, but many times, many teams are formed, not necessarily in Toastmasters, in different organizations. You've all heard about cross-functional teams in organizations, right? Multitask forces. They do not cross this stage, storming stage. Most of them die. Finally, one guy who is so good in doing, and one guy who is so, I'm sure there are a few guys sitting here, who's always doing the lion's share of the work, will get the things done, and finally the report will have all the members' names. Because storming is so challenging. Because why storming is challenging? We don't have the right leadership exhibited and practiced. And if you really see what is the one, if you have to call all these stages as different fibers, let's say the forming, storming, norming, and performing are different fibers, all these fibers are going to be united and bonded together into a beautiful fabric called teamwork. There is one uniting force, that is leadership. And this leadership which will make these teams develop the right culture, right set of behavioral skills and everything. It is this leadership which is going to make everyone lead themselves properly. Like those cats and ducks behave properly, unlike the human being who didn't. Okay? Okay, I think now since everybody is a little quiet, we have to get this. So fine, we need to focus on leadership. How do we define leadership?
Lead for a purpose.
Sorry?
Lead for
Lead
some cause.
lead for a purpose. You are asking why leadership is required. Lead for a purpose. How can we define leadership? There are so many definitions.
He's an influential person.
Person who can lead by example.
Sorry?
Person who can lead by example.
A person who can lead by be a role model. But what is the
Leadership.
what is leadership?
Yeah, it's the power of a person to convince others to do what he wants and what he guides them for.
Good. That's a very important thing. That's influence. You are talking about influence.
Yes.
The influence. Yeah.
Adding to the
Sorry.
power to inspire as well.
Power, inspire is very important. Inspire, influence. Yes, we are getting great inputs. More. There are leaders here. There are wonderful leaders.
Leaders will not do his job alone. He will allocate his responsibility to.
He needs a team. Let's say he is the one who motivates and puts together his team and delegates, manages, administers. Good, important. Anything more? Leaders? Leaders who are reading coffee, Arabic coffee.
He defines.
Sorry?
He defines.
He defines the goals, for example.
The way.
Okay, the way forward. Okay.
A person who will motivate
a person who's motivation.
Motivation.
Great, I think it's, all of them, all these things are required qualities of a leader, all these
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
Yes.
How many of you remember Ralph C. Smedley's definition of leadership, the founder of Toastmasters? Okay. A leader is a person who has the ability, now you can start filling in the blanks, who has the ability to look ahead, think ahead, plan ahead, and influence people. I am putting it within quote, influence people to go ahead after the plan. Do you remember this?
Yes.
Ralph C. Smedley. You must.
Okay.
Let me repeat it again.
Okay.
He's a person who has the ability to look ahead, think ahead, plan ahead, and influence people
To be
go ahead.
to be
and-
proactive first, and then.
Yeah, it's all encompassing. It
Yeah.
might fit many leadership definitions. You can look at Nelson Mandela's
Yeah.
definition. You can look at Mahatma Gandhi's definition. I think all of them will encompass it. But the most look ahead is important. A lot of planning is required. A lot of forward-thinking process is required. But I would say the biggest responsibility of a leader is influence people
Yes.
to
Yes.
go ahead. That comes from influence and inspiration.
Yes.
Okay, this is very important. That's a big,
Yeah.
the biggest quality of leader. Okay, this is what yesteryears. I mean, leadership has always been associated with authority, formal power. But what about those ducks? What about the cat? Did they not lead well? The greatest challenge in leadership is how to lead yourself well. Once you are going to be a great leader, leading yourself well, you are going to be a leadership. You are going to be exhibiting great qualities of leadership. So I want to take a page from this great leader, Robin Sharma. This is what he says about leadership. I have attended his sessions many times. If you are a breathing human being, you can be a leader. Leadership is a way of living. Is the way of doing everything in our life. Leadership has got nothing to do with our title, position, office, or the big car or money, or you don't have to be a prime minister or a CEO to be a leader.
Yes, because every person can be a leader if he has the willpower and works
Exactly.
on himself to improve his knowledge and experience.
That's what he says. That is exactly what it is. And I think if the pedestrian who was crossing the road did not mind about anything else, I think she was not leading herself.
Right.
Okay. She was not leading herself with the responsibility that she has to exhibit for the society.
Right.
So leadership, if you are a breathing human being, you have not only the opportunity, but you have the responsibility to be a leader. And this is what he goes on to say. This is another one. You will never be a better leader than the person that you are. What does it mean? Because it means leadership has to be a habit. Leadership is not just a role. Leadership has no weekends. You can't choose to be a leader. Okay, this term I'm an area director, I'm a division director, I'm a president. This year I will be a leader. Next year I won't be a leader. That's not possible.
Yes.
Right?
That's
Do you
true.
agree with me?
Yes.
That's true, yes.
But there are misconceptions around it. And I take a position, I have a title. I'm not trying to discourage or demotivate any thinking here, but I'm trying to shed some light on leadership as taught by those gurus. Okay? Leadership has no brain. So it's a way of being. So now, how do we install great leadership behavior, and how do we install these leadership skills as practicing leaders? I'm just going to share with you 5 key protocols, okay, to be a practicing leader, on how to make leadership as a habit. Number 1 is
Yes. Leadership can be performed through planning, organizing, motivating, problem solving, monitoring, and through all this we reach leadership.
That's right. But I'm just, we need to have some guideline on making it, easy to practice on a day-to-day living basis.
Yeah.
Okay? If we don't have, let's say, a formal authority, if we don't have a formal office to lead, but we only have, even in Toastmasters, we don't have, we are not empowered to exhibit authority on everybody. It's an involuntary organization. It's a voluntary organization, right? We don't have formal authority or power over others. So, but how do you practice leadership and make your leadership influential, leadership inspiring instead of others? Number one, try and develop a mindset to lead without a title. We talked about it's lead without a title. How do you develop a mindset to lead without a title? It's the way you look at life, the way you plan your life. As you said, how the way you plan your days.
Yes.
Okay, the time you wake up, what you do, how you get ready, how you look at your work environment, whether you look at your work as a work or as an opportunity for you to create a quality act.
Right.
Is leadership. How you're going to carry around the camaraderie and the people around you. How you're going to focus on inspiring and elevating people around you is leadership. How you are going to end your day. How you are going to install the health habits that you need to have to invest on yourself as a great leader. Because leadership is an energy demanding task. And today's world, energy is needed much, much more than intelligence to be performing. Really speaking, I think because why I'm saying what I'm saying is that today access to information, access to is very easy. You just click of you can access any information here. But whether you have the energy, whether you have the right focus to focus on the right, because there's so much of distraction in today's world. So having the right energy and right focus, this is again leadership.
Yes.
Okay. So installing that habit of to lead yourself, but to be doing the right thing, is a very important activity. Just start practicing it. That's very important. Great sportsmen, great artists.
Yes.
Even if they are going to be lost. I don't know how many of you know about Michael Djokovic. Only watch tennis.
Yes.
Djokovic was out of action for a couple of years.
Yes.
And
He won the Wimbledon.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the kind of efforts and investments that would have gone into those 2 years? And the way he came back? It's leadership.
Yeah.
He led himself.
He was number one, and finally he became to be unseeded. And then
now he's number eight,
number
nine.
10 now.
Number 10. Well, that was a great match. We are going to be talking about the match a little later. But practice, practice breeds performance. It's also said, if you have to bleed less in war, you need to sweat more on practice. So any change in mindset, any dimensional, forward-thinking approach has to be practiced on a daily basis. This is number one. Number two, the job of a leader, we did talk about it, is to grow more leaders. It's a key responsibility of a leader. If you have to grow more, if you are a leader, you have to grow more leaders. If you are not growing leaders faster than your peers, then you are not a leader, you are going to be a follower. It's so very important to be developing leaders. Leadership is a legacy. The legacy has to be on a continuing process, for which you need to be developing leaders. And how do we, this may sound a little abstract, but how do we do it at work? Okay, celebrate your, if the success and failures of your colleagues.
Share the knowledge.
Share the knowledge. Good. How do you practice it in a community, in a society environment, in Toastmasters? There are enough opportunities for us to develop leaders. There are enough structural methodologies for us to develop leaders. Today we are developing leaders.
Yeah.
Okay, and we will be developing more leaders in our clubs, in our programs. Okay. At home, how do you develop leaders for the future? How do you grow leaders? Parenting, great parenting, right parenting, introducing your children to great books, introducing your children to great habits, introducing your children on the necessity of installing sport as a competitive spirit in the day-to-day life, way of living. Okay. So that is also very important. The third aspect, which is a very important one, which you also did come across during the exchange, install the 3I practice in you as a leader. What are the 3 I's? All these things, by the way, doesn't belong to Peri. It belongs to Robin Sharma. I'm just sharing what he taught. Number 1, I is inspire. Inspire, influence, and impact. We did talk about inspire and influence, which came up automatically. Yes. But we have to a little bit talk about inspiration. It's the key quality. Again, if you go to Rams Feast mentally, influencing people is possible only through inspiring. Whether you take Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, or Steve Jobs, or Jeff Bezos of Amazon, all of them are great inspirational leaders. Elon Musk is a great inspiration. Okay, I don't know how many of you really know what kind of a boss Steve Jobs was. Can you?
Yes, he was very harsh on the employees. He had great attention to detail. He used to fire employees in the elevators.
Great. He used to fire employees on the elevator. I mean, people used to be damn scared about Steve Jobs. Okay, but he still, if you are going to conduct a poll of the people who left Apple, they would say he was a great inspiration for everyone. He was such a harsh leader, but a very inspirational leader. There's this little story I want to quickly share with you. When Steve Jobs was a young adult, he was at his home, and his dad called him and asked him to go paint the fence outside the home. And Steve Jobs went around, did the painting for a few hours, very sincerely, came back and told his dad. He was a young adult, I don't know whether he was 16, 17 years old. He came back and told his dad, "Dad, I painted." His dad went and, "Did you know the story? Did you read the story?" Okay, dad went and inspected. He said, "Great job, Steve, you've done a great job. Outside has been painted beautifully well. But what about the inside? You haven't painted the inside of the fence." Steve looked at his dad and said, "But Dad, who will see the inside?" And his dad said, "We." Maybe 10, 15 years later, when Steve Jobs became the CEO of Apple, he was about to, in the next 3 months, he was going to launch Apple Macintosh, the first computer. How many of you remember this Apple Macintosh computer? Very nice computer. And he was sitting with his design team as the CEO, very demanding, harsh CEO, was sitting there and said, "Guys, I don't know what you will do. You have to do two things for me. Number one, I want the outside of the computer to look very simple and elegant. But I want the inside of the computer should be so beautiful that it will bring tears in your eyes. I want the inside to be so beautiful." And then, design guys are all engineers, technical guys, right? So I said, "Steve, what is this? Why do you want the inside? Who will look at the inside?" He said, "We." And that explains the story of where Apple is today. That is inspiration. Even, we all must have seen, when we buy iPhone or Mac computer, the way it is packaged today, you don't feel like throwing away that package, right? You want to retain it with you. It seems he is the one who approved the design. That is inspiration. Inspiring your people. That is, as a leader of Toastmasters, as a leader of your organization, as a leader of your family, as a leader of your community, society, inspiration is a very important task. And how do you inspire people? I don't know how many of you have watched my stupid Facebook posts. I post, some of Facebook friends are there. I post videos and I said, leadership is always about two always. Always, number one, always stay inspired, and number two, always inspire. Very simple. Leadership is about two always. Always stay inspired and always inspire. It sounds so simple, but it's not. It's so difficult. To stay always inspired requires lots and lots of learning and investment. How many of you know Bill Gates reads about 50 books every year, which is one book a week? There are so many CEOs reporting to him. So inspiration is key. Number two, I have Elon Musk here. Elon Musk is another inspirational leader who made people create value on things that they felt was impossible. So he's the person who inspired people towards the achievability of a perceivably impossible value creation, be it the battery cars, be it the SpaceX rockets, be the vacuum tubes. That is inspiration. Second part, we talked about influence. Someone said influence here about, okay. John Maxwell, another leadership guru, he says, but this is brought in Robin Sharma's teachings. Influence, leadership is nothing but influence. You have to, the way you do things, the way you perform things, the way you talk to people, the language that you use. Robin Sharma says the precision of languaging is so important if you have to influence people. All those great people, whether it is Aristotle or Socrates or Mahatma Gandhi or Winston Churchill, they all used great words, great vocabulary, great languaging, very pithy, very straightforward, very sharp. That will create the influence that you intend to create with people. the way you do things. That's so very important. John Maxwell also said, has a definition of leadership. Leadership is the ability to obtain followers.
Yes.
Right? Very straightforward. It might be a little crude, but it is very straightforward. But how do you make people follow you? Influence. Positively influencing.
Yes.
You know, on always having a leadership mentality rather than a victim mentality. You know, do you know the difference between the leadership mentality and a victim mentality?
And
Sorry?
between leadership and what?
Victim mentality. Victim mentality. Now, okay, for example, if someone is given a task to set up something and achieve this, okay, I want a conference. Let's say our PQD, Samir Kamal says, I want a workshop to be done on this day, this time. And the leadership mentality will start thinking how I will achieve that on the particular, what are the resources I need, and he will go ahead and conducting them.
Yeah.
The victim mentality will start finding out the excuses. Why? What are the challenges? Why it cannot be done? Okay, this is very high level, but influential leaders always have the leadership mentality, and as leaders we need to have the influence. Third one is the impact. We talked about inspire, influence, the impact. Why do we need to create impact as leaders? How can we create impact as leaders? When we convert our ideas, we have brilliant ideas, great ideas. When we convert all those ideas into actions, they become impact and impactful. Okay? And some leaders keep debating. Before I go into this, and we go on debating, not necessarily in Toastmasters context. I'm talking about general, large political context, business context, family context. So much of ideas, but nothing executed. They remain as wishes. This is again ideation without execution is delusion. Robert Sharma. Ideation without execution is delusion.
Yes.
If you want to be impactful, if you want the extent of the impact that you create on the world around you, what does it depend? It depends on the size of your commitment to the purpose that you stand for. The extent of the impact that you can create on the people around you, the society around you, depends on the size of your commitment to the purpose. If you have to conduct so many workshops, if you have to conduct conferences, you have to stay committed and get it done. Whether it was Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King or John F. Kennedy, I mentioned three names. What is the commonality between all three of them? Mahatma Gandhi, JFK, John F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King. All of them were assassinated because they stood committed for the purpose. I'm not saying that leaders should die. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. But the extent of the commitment to the purpose makes us talk about them after the death, after many decades, they are gone. The extent of the commitment of Malala Yousafzai's commitment to her purpose brought her the Nobel Prize, brought a societal revolution in wherever she went. Okay. So that should be also leaders have to be impactful, not just idea creating. They have to create the impact for which execution to do. We talked about three factors. Number 4 is quality of your craft. Make the quality of your craft so beautiful that it will bring tears, like what Steve Jobs did to Apple. So very good. What great artists, great musicians do. You know, some of this I'm not a fan of painting. I don't understand painting, but some of these great painters, the way they paint, some people sit in front of the painting for hours together and enjoy. That brings tears. Make your job, whatever you do, make the quality of what you do so great. So that, there will be always naysayers, there will be a lot of critics, there will be a lot of jealousy, right? Jealousy is part of, you have to go through jealousy and animosity when you drive through leadership journey, right? And the only way for you to get over jealousy and animosity is maintaining the quality that you need to have. Make qualities. There are a lot of there are many Indians sitting here. Sorry, I'm giving Indian examples. Okay, how many of us, almost every one of us loves A.R. Rahman. Okay, what is the difference? He brought a totally different quality dimension to music. Okay. And not only that, even you don't have to be a great leader. Whatever you do, okay, even you could be a frontline employee of an organization. But if you stick on with your quality, if you with great leadership drive in whatever you do, you are going to create what they say today is your own personal economy. The idea of personal economy, world is changing. World is so volatile. Crude oil prices changes, industry trends changes, expats get thrown out. I'm telling you, I'm just giving that as one of the examples. Okay? And everything that is the dollar to rupee conversion changes like mad. Currencies get devalued. I don't know, India was last 6 months, if we say it's about 10%. If you take Pakistan, the currency conversion is 25 to 30%. Last 10 months, 6 to 10 months. Can you understand? 25 to 30%. What kind of impact it will have on the individual spending and revenue potential? 10% is big. But if you're going to keep your quality so great in whatever you do, with quality obsession like Steve Jobs, you will create your own personal economy. You will be, income will follow, maintaining quality. So as leaders, we have to drive with quality. Finally, the very important thing from the leadership context is building relationships. We talked about that in even the previous speakers' relationship. Nowadays, with the advent of social media, there is a gross commoditization of humanity. Nowadays, people, we post, we want likes. Oh, you're getting 200 likes? I didn't get 200 likes. And we start judging people with the number of likes they get on their posts. We don't understand what that person would have. Sometimes I close my eyes and, honestly speaking, I put likes. Okay? Because I know this person likes to be liked. Right? Okay. And what is the relationship there? What kind of a relationship we are building there? Okay?
The liking relationship.
Yes.
And I'm just, building relationship. We like doing business with people we like, right?
Yes.
Before a person lends you his hand or her hand, you need to touch that person's heart. Only then there is warmth in the connection. Otherwise, there is no warmth in the connection.
Yes.
I'll give you an example. Sorry for the expat bias. Okay, there are a lot of expats sitting here. We all go on vacation. We go to airports. I travel a lot. My job demands me to travel a lot. When we go in and stand in that airport queue, whether you're traveling economy class or if a company sends you on a business class, you're standing there and then you go in front of the check-in counter. I'm not blaming everyone, okay? I'm talking about majority of the cases. How do you like that experience?
Depends from country to country. Some places it's not very good, some places it's...
Most
Depends.
of the time it's not.
Most of the times, that is your point, and you're saying it depends on the customer. The person looks at your passport, looks at the ticket.
Embarrassing.
Bag. You have one more? So where's your handbag? He makes you feel you're standing in front of a police cop. But you're paid through your nose for that ticket, whether it's economy or a business class. The places where you get treated well. Okay, when he looks at you, when he smiles at you, sir, how are you? What are you going to do in Switzerland? India. Okay, where? We're going to Trivandrum. Okay, what is the place like? If he's going to give some few words of exchange, smiles at you, you will feel like going back to that airline again. But if that is an opportunity for him to show his leadership and build relationship with you. Okay? That is leadership. But most of them, they take things for granted. Sometimes it happens even with doctors in hospitals. They don't look at your eyes. Okay, sir, I have this. Okay, you take this. You go for this test. I have doctor friends who are on my WhatsApp. I exchange a lot of jokes, and we go to that. The credit goes to them. They have the ability to build relationships. Building relationships is very, very vital if you want to be a successful leader. Personal relationships, not life relationships. Okay. Okay. I think we talked about building leadership. In my opinion, is learnership. Okay. This word is not there in dictionary, so don't Google it. Now we talked about leadership, the 5 steps, protocols that we need to follow.
Can I sum them up with one?
Yeah, I will be summing them up tomorrow.
No, not some. Just give one small praise. All this, according to me, to be a successful leader, when there is any performance, he should say we and not I.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
and when there is a problem, he should say, let's solve the problem, not putting the blame on others. That is, he should step in the shoes of his subordinates,
Yes.
visualizing things from their angle, and
Absolutely.
sympathizing with their problems and
Absolutely.
make them stronger emotionally and mentally.
I can't agree with you less than that. And I can understand you've gone through a lot of time. Experience now. Just on it's very valid. I think very valid. I think these are all the failures of leadership. You know, people assume leadership to be a position of authority and power.
Yes.
You can't be you have to be leader. Leadership is a mindset and heart set. Very important. Leadership is not position and title.
Yes.
How you lead yourself with your heart and mind. It's also called health set and soul. I'll tell you later about that. Now, steps to build a successful team. We talked about leadership. Very quickly, we are going to talk about the steps needed to build successful teams. Here again, we are talking about 5 steps. I will focus on each one of them separately. So I will not read it out here. Number 1, focusing on the roles. You're all going to be selecting your own team for various tasks, for various roles. How will you go about selecting your team members? Very quickly. What are the qualities you look for when you are going to select a team member?
Whoever is very close will put him in a
Wonderful, wonderful.
in an important role.
Okay, when you go looks close. Okay. that is leadership bias, huh? Experience. Okay.
Someone who's proactive.
Proactive. Great.
Attitude.
Attitude. I think I was looking for these two words.
A
They're coming.
strength,
I think.
a strength is required on that person as per the requirement.
Okay. That's what he's saying. Experience.
Job, yeah.
He said experience. You can combine experience, the talents, the skill sets required to perform the job. And some people even go for colorful people who can bring people around. They can attract people, energetic people. But I think these two gentlemen have said. I mean, anyone. It's all probably in everyone's mind. But they have said attitude and commitment. They're so important in a selection process. If you're selecting team members to make your team a great team, greatly performing team, for you to get over the storming stage of your team, we talked about.
Yeah.
Go for attitude and commitment. It is the attitude which is going to be much more important, and which is the attitude which is going to connect all this talent, experience, and energy to be converted into a performance. Attitude and commitment of your team member gets the topmost priority. This is not my guideline. This is Bruce Tucker's in selecting and making a performing team. We can talk a lot about it, but we'll only focus on this keyword. Second one is valuing each role. This is what you said about visualizing yourself into the shoes of the other person's role.
Yes.
However small, it can be if in a Toastmasters contest, it can be a surgeon at arms. But the surgeon at arms is doing a great job, very important task. He's calling for the meeting to order. When in a conference, he's the guy who keeps the doors closed.
Right.
When a keynote speaker, I've been a keynote speaker. When I talk, when I see the doors opening, closing, people walking, going, I don't know what I do.
Distraction.
Yeah, but without the sergeant arm, it's not going to happen. So value each role. How do you value each role? Connect with them. Connect with those little role players of your team. Connect with them very strong. I'm just going to give a very short story here. Very important story, because DTM Jamil is a little tired. I know he's a good listener of story. So I'm going to show this. In India, again, Indian context, the president of the country, president of India is the topmost constitutional authority. Even though the prime minister is the most powerful person. Okay, but the head of the country is the president of all the armed forces report to him directly. And there are lots of the protocols, if you see, are the highest only for the president. You understand the political protocol, how he has to come, where he has to sit. If you have to go and shake hands with the president of India, you cannot just walk. If the king of Saudi, you cannot just walk. There are so many procedures. You cannot. He should be the first person to leave the stage if he is attending a meeting. Only then, even the prime minister cannot leave ahead of him. There are so many protocols. Now, to cut the long story short, it was sometime in the 1960s, early 1960s. This is a serious, real story. Okay, and there was this great musician in the southern part of India. Okay, somewhere in Tamil Nadu, somewhere down south, and he was invited for the presidential palace to perform in front of his haunted guests. In the Indian presidential palace is beautiful, gardens and everything. He went there and he went he landed at the airport and the presidential palace car was there. They picked him up, the musician who was going to the presidential palace. 1962. The president of India was Dr. Radhakrishnan. Okay. The musician, stunned and didn't know what to do when he saw Sir Radhakrishnan was standing outside the car. And he opened the door, protocol of the president of India. He opened the door for the musician. The musician stepped out and he was shivering in that emotion, in that emotional touch. And he asked the president, Mr. President, you should not have done this. You need not have gone to this level. It's too much. You know what Dr. Radhakrishnan said? Mr. Arunachal was the name of the musician. You know, if you, as a common citizen of Indian democracy, you can contest elections or you can enter politics and you can become the president of the country. But I can never become a great musician like you. This is a true story. And that musician's family, generations still remember the story. He happens to be my grandfather. Okay? Just sharing this with you. But the point is not bragging about myself. You know, valuing each role. Okay? Valuing each role. Make the kind of impact that you can leave on your team member by valuing every role is so very important. So that there won't be a complaint in this forum. Like, okay? Communicate as a leader with your team members and communicate clearly. This is very important. Why I'm saying communicate and communicate rightly is the word I've used. Because many of the leaders like to talk, but how many leaders really like to listen to the team members? Again, a little story, Nelson Mandela. Mr. Nelson Mandela, there are so many leaders in this world, but Nelson Mandela is one of the widely acknowledged leaders in this world. One of the greatest leaders. How many of you know that Nelson Mandela was the son of a tribal leader? He was born in a hut. Okay? And he used to go for those meetings, the tribal meetings with his dad. Okay? They used to sit as big groups. His father he was 7-8 years old son, Nelson Mandela, and his father, even though being the leader of the tribal group, he would let everyone in the group talk and he'll be the last person to speak. He religiously followed this, very sincerely followed this. So one day the little Nelson asked his dad, Dad, why is that you are the last person to speak? Why you want to listen to everyone? Why you don't say certain obvious things? There are many stupid things being said. Why don't you say the obvious things first as a leader? He said, by being the last person to speak, I get 2 benefits. One, excuse me. Okay. Number one, I want to listen to you. Okay, number one, he says, by being the last person to speak, I get to hear what everyone has. I get the benefit of getting everyone's ideas. One of them may have a brilliant idea. That's number one. Number two, by letting them all speak and me listening, I am giving them a fulfillment, a feeling that they are participating in the process and they are satisfied in the process. How many leaders sincerely let others speak? That is very important. Sometimes you get jet lag after meeting some leaders because you cannot get them, very honestly speaking. Okay. Another important one is setting goals. This is very obvious. We need, as leaders, as for teams, we are talking about teamwork here, we have to have goals, accountability, execution, measurement, and anything that you don't measure and track, you cannot manage. Coming to simple things like DCP points, distinguished clubs, distinguished areas, president distinguished districts, cannot be managed if you're not going to be goal-oriented, action-oriented, tracking-oriented, and push-oriented. Okay, that is definitely a must. One of the diseases of people running for leadership, they acquire leadership, they get into positions, and they think they are entitled to be leaders. The mindset of entitlement, Shudas is laughing. Okay, that is there. You do to become. This is a philosophy. You do to become. You don't become without doing. Okay, that's very, very important. So we have to ensure that people are accountable. I will be sharing most of this content on emails with you. I will ask you to upload over email. This I very quickly go through this flip-flop chart, the SAGE technique, which is, I made this chart out of this. You know, you do to become, you change to progress, you sacrifice to succeed. If you want to become, you do. If you want to progress, you change. If you want to succeed, you need to sacrifice. This is a message that you need to give your team members constantly. And team members need to give you sometimes. Okay, it's not possible the other way around. There is no entitlement in leadership. There is no free holiday. There is no free lunch. Final two things, very important, celebrating success and failures. I think you need to embrace, empathize, and encourage every individual member of the team, whether he is performing, whether he is succeeding or failing, but you need to encourage because you need to make self-worth go up. The last one, the very important one, again, promoting camaraderie. Very, very important, promoting camaraderie. You know, because we are always leading teams. Teams, whether it is a Toastmasters club team, or it is a school team, or it's an industry team, or it is a NASA team. But a team is comprised of people. And we are always managing not just teams, the families, members of the family. The way, I mean, we need to, if you are a leader of a team, we need to treat the team as your family. People falter, people make mistakes, but we need to support them, motivate them, understand them, empathize with them, and give them an opportunity again. That's so very important. That is what will make them, they should have, you know, in industry terminology, they said that secure base management. You should not question, you should not put the security of an individual at risk. If you don't do this, you'll get fired. No, that's not possible. Steve Jobs could do that because he was giving a lot of value, but not every one of us can give so much of value to our employees. Give them the security, treat them like a family member. At the same time, push them, make them accountable. Then there will be people should start seeing work as an opportunity to have fun. When we are free, when we are happy, that is when we produce our best. If I am talking to you, if I start thinking that every one of you is judging and evaluating me, which you are doing, I should not have that in my mind. Yes. Okay, I should be talking to you like as I am talking to my son. So make your team members feel that way. Promote camaraderie. That's so very important for your teams to peak. Okay, now we are just summing up. What are the key protocols to be a leader? Number one, develop a mindset to lead without a title. Number two, job of a leader is to create more leaders, grow more leaders. Follow the 3 I practice. What are the 3 I's we talked about?
Inspiring,
Impact.
Great. Quality of your craft is make it so good that it will bring tears in people's eyes. That will wipe away all the jealousy and animosity around you. Remember this. Build relationships, real relationships. Remember that airport example, check-in counter example. Make it a real relationship building experience. And steps to build successful teams, focus on the roles, which is selection, value each and every role, communicate and communicate rightly, be a great listener. You know, if you want to be if you have to be a great speaker, you have to be a great listener. If you have to be a great leader, you have to be a great reader. These are all very important things. Setting goals to make people accountable and not make them feel entitled for the position. Celebrate success and failure and promote camaraderie. These are the very important things that we did cover today. If there are any questions, I can answer, otherwise you can say.
Great session.